with drier conditions and sunnier skies to the east, highs of 7 Celsius. For Northern Ireland, a dry but windy morning with sunny spells, but showers arriving from the west later in the day. Afternoon highs of around 6 Celsius. Northern England will likely turn increasingly showery through Sunday morning with a fresh southwesterly breeze and temperatures climbing towards afternoon highs of 7 Celsius. It will be an inclement day for North Wales, with the showers merging into longer spells of rain and turning to sleet or snow over the mountains. Daytime temperatures peaking at around 6 Celsius. For the East Midlands, a breezy and largely dry morning with sunny spells, turning cloudier later with the risk of showers. Temperatures rising towards highs of 7 to 9 Celsius for the afternoon. For East Anglia, a risk of showers for Essex and Suffolk during the morning, otherwise dry for most. Showers becoming more widespread for the afternoon. Breezy with highs of 9 Celsius. A showery and breezy morning for southern England and rather cloudy too. Some blustery winds in and around the heaviest showers with daytime temperatures climbing to highs of around 8 Celsius. Staying cyclonic with strong winds and gales in northern Scotland, gradually easing and bands of showers passing eastward across the country. And that is how the weather is shaping up through tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious, much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 8 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. 3 hours of discussion, debate and plenty of fun along the way, including my big opinion monologue, my take at 10, the panel and tomorrow's Sunday papers. But we start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls. The topics tonight: how do we fix the NHS? Was William right to give Harry a slap? And should it be harder to get divorced? I'll be doing that in the company of a total broadcasting hero of mine. I'm calling him the Pele of the papers, Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Lots to get through. We don't do boring, not on my watch. A massive 3 hours to come, including my diary of the week, which is next. But first, the headlines, and with me all evening, my wing commander, Aaron Armstrong.
Hi there, yes, good evening. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has described today's discussions between NHS leaders and the Prime Minister as highly valuable. Rishi Sunak, the Health Secretary, and ministers from the Treasury held crisis talks with health experts at Downing Street in an effort to ease the pressure on the NHS. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, says at least 2 innovative solutions have been identified to tackle some of the challenges facing the sector. And Chief Executive of the Day Lewis Pharmacy Group, Jay Patel, says the talks were constructive.
You know, the session was a small group of us, lots of insight in terms of what the problems really are out there, balance between community pharmacy and general practice, and some great description of what the core issues are out there on the ground. The PM was very receptive to what we discussed and we explained the issues, and we swiftly moved on to looking at options that we could put into place to be able to rapidly see if we can alleviate some of those challenges.
Shadow Minister for Public Health, Andrew Gwynn, though, says further reforms are needed to fix the crisis.
Everybody who has an interest in the National Health Service really should be round the table, trying to work out not only the short-term measures that are needed to get us through the rest of this winter, but also how we then put health and social care on a sustainable footing, the kind of reforms that are needed, the kind of investment that's needed for the long term, not just sticking plasters.
Shelling is continuing in Ukraine despite Russia's proposed 36-hour ceasefire. Missile strikes have been heard in the eastern city of Bakhmut, as one resident described the situation there.
Our town used to be so beautiful. There were roses everywhere, flowers. It was clean. Everything was kept in order.
Well, Russia declared its forces would observe a unilateral ceasefire for Orthodox Christmas, which was immediately dismissed by Kyiv as propaganda and a cynical trap. The Kremlin claims its troops have only fired in retaliation to attacks from Ukrainian forces. The ceasefire is due to end at 10 o'clock our time. The Foreign Secretary has condemned Iran's execution of 2 protesters. James Cleverly called the hangings abhorrent and urged the country to immediately end the violence against its own people. Iran executed the 2 men for allegedly killing a member of its security forces during nationwide demonstrations following the death of the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini last September. Police in the United States have arrested a 6-year-old boy after he shot and seriously injured a teacher at a primary school in the state of Virginia. Officers say the woman's injuries were initially thought to be life-threatening, but her condition has improved in hospital. The chief police officer said the shooting was not an accident and said the 2 had what he has described as an altercation. It's unclear how the child got hold of the handgun. The RMT union says rail companies at the heart of the long-running dispute over pay made hundreds of millions of pounds in profits during the pandemic. The union claims huge profits were generated when the government awarded private train operators new contracts during COVID. They say companies made up to £310 million in taxpayer-funded profits between March 2020 and September 2022. It comes as the RMT and the 14 train operators continue their 48-hour walkout over pay, jobs and conditions. MPs have been urged to support paid leave for miscarriage. The proposal by an SNP member would grant 3 days of statutory pay to parents, paid leave that is, who experience a miscarriage before 24 weeks of pregnancy. Angela Crawley said it would give parents the time they need to grieve. Currently, paid bereavement leave is only given after stillbirth after 24 weeks. Prince Harry claims he was not the real best man at the wedding of his brother, the Prince of Wales. In more leaked excerpts from his memoir, the Duke of Sussex reportedly says the role was fulfilled by his brother's two closest friends. He also suggests King Charles feared Meghan would dominate the monarchy and steal the limelight from Charles and Camilla. Referring to his military days, Harry says he killed 25 Taliban fighters, a claim which has been criticised by the British Army and the Taliban themselves. And flood warnings are in place across England and Wales as heavy downpours are expected to hit the UK overnight. There are 27 flood warnings in place for England, with a further 8 in place for Wales. And in Scotland, the Environment Protection Agency has issued 6 flood alerts. That's it for the moment. TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News, but now it is back to the wonderful Mark Dolan.
My thanks to Aaron, who's back in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. We start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls on the big stories of the day. Tonight, the stars of the show are Francis in Salisbury, Robin in Kent, Alan in Yateley, Andrew in Essex, and last but not least, Michaela in Elgin. We'll be hearing a lot from them over the next 60 minutes. The topics tonight, as the Prime Minister holds an NHS crisis meeting at number 10. How do we fix the NHS? I'm looking for your solutions. With the world's unhappiest billionaire becoming the epitome of TMI, too much information, then you've got to ask yourself, was William right to give Harry a bit of a slap? And with Monday, the 9th of January, this Monday now dubbed Divorce Day, should we make it harder to get divorced? My Saturday sidekick for the first hour of the show is a broadcasting and journalistic legend. He is the Pele of the papers, Mike Porky Parry. Mike, great to have you with us. Can't wait to hear your views on all of these big stories. After 9, in my big opinion, the NHS crisis is no justification for more ruinous COVID measures. As the siren voices for masks and work from home grow louder, we must draw a line under these wildly discredited measures. Just say no. In the big question, as more and more sex toys hit the high street, Mike Parry's quite shocked, we'll be asking, do you want to see sex toys on the high street? How do you feel about these rather strange vibrating devices sat next to your paracetamol and your shower gel? Shocking. We'll also get the views of the Queen of US showbiz royal and political reporting Kinsey Scofield on Prince Harry's latest revelations. And are the couple falling out of favour in the US? It is going to be a US news special with the brilliant Kinsey Scofield after 9. And in the news agenda with my panel, as millennials reveal they dread turning 30, is it time for young people to grow up? Also, should companies be more generous to their staff? Plus, as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? Would you like to have your body frozen? Let me know. Mark at gbnews.uk. We've also got tomorrow's papers, and of course it's the Sunday papers, from 10:20 right through until 11. That is 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. So there you go, 3 hours of debate and fun. This is Mark Dolan tonight. It is Saturday, so put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a night to remember. Your video calls in just a moment, but first, my look back at the week in Dolan's diary. It's time now for my diary of the week and big Brexit news, as reported by The Guardian newspaper. Thousands of Britons have been expelled from the EU since the end of the transition period. More than 2,250 UK nationals have been ordered to leave the bloc since January 2021. Well, that's nothing. I've been doing some research, and it turns out that 66 million people left the bloc on the 23rd of June 2016. Bad news now for cold sufferers, as Lemsip, are running out of stock. That's right, there's a shortage which is leaving supermarket shelves empty amid the worst flu outbreak in decades. Supplies are so low that opportunist drug dealers have swapped crack cocaine and crystal meth for night nurse and Benylin. The street value of Vicks cold and flu has quadrupled. And that is some pretty hot stuff, let me tell you. I was strung out last night on VapoRub, and I'm still not right. Rennies mashed up on a spoon? Just say no. Now, David Beckham's son, Brooklyn Beckham, has been mocked this week for his latest cooking video in which he bakes a piece of meat worth over £300. 300 quid! In fairness, he only buys the finest livestock. I'm told when he's at the Sainsbury's meat counter, he always asks for golden bulls. Fitness giant Peloton is being fined $19 million over a delay in reporting defects in 4,000 of its treadmills that have led to serious accidents. Now, I can totally relate to this. I was on one of those during lockdown and I almost spilt my pint. Meanwhile, Prince Harry has caused consternation with the release of his tell-all autobiography, Spare. Many people are complaining about its price too, but I think 25 quid for a doorstop is a bit of a bargain. The book contains lurid revelations about losing his virginity to an older woman in a field behind a pub. Now, I'll spare you the gory details about positions and everything, but suffice to say that he did to that lady what he's currently doing to his own family and the country. Also in the book, Harry alleges that Prince William shoved him, broke his necklace and grabbed his collar, sending him flying to the ground. The bad news is that they have destroyed their relationship. The good news is that Don King is offering them $100 million for the rematch. I'd pay to see that. Now, in his first keynote speech of the year, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced plans to make pupils study maths until 18. Now, let's have this right. The only person who needs to get the hang of arithmetic is Sunak himself, who'll have to work out how to govern a minority party at the next election. Greggs the bakers have increased the price of a sausage roll by, wait for it, 5p to £1.20. This is the fourth increase in a year. More expensive sausage rolls. What swines? You Cumberland, be serious. Babe, what were you thinking? That's taking the pig. Shocking news now, and a grandmother was strapped to a wheelie bin and driven to A&E after breaking her hip. The innovation backfired because she was dressed as a bin. She wasn't picked up for 2 weeks. And that is my diary of the week. Let's speak now to the journalistic and broadcasting legend Mike "Porky" Parry, the Pele of the papers. Mike, great to have you on the show. Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on. And I don't normally say Happy New Year to anybody after midday on New Year's Day, because as far as I'm concerned, you've got to get on with life. And if people are still thinking about Happy New Year a week after the New Year has happened, I say you've got to think a different way.
I quite like that. You are smarter than the average bear. You think outside the box. You're not sentimental, are you? The tree was probably incinerated on the 26th of December, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, look, I love the Christmas period. It's great to get together with the family, but it should be contained in 3 days. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and whoosh, and then I'm away, OK?
We're out.
Now, my birthday's on the 29th, so I then have to get into another 24-hour sort of mulchy, yes, everybody loves me type period, OK?
When you let your guard down.
Yeah, well, I let my guard down. And then New Year's Eve, I've never been a New Year's Ever because I regard it as a night for the amateurs, OK? Because, you know, the sort of life that you and I have led in the media world that we work in, we've met a lot of people who regard New Year's Eve as rather down market from a normal night after work. You see what I mean? So the amateurs come out on New Year's Eve. I'm delighted to be able to tell you, Mark, that on New Year's Eve, I was actually here at GB News, serving GB News and serving the nation and seeing them into 2023, which can only be a better year than 22, surely.
Well, it can only be. So that's my dream. Mike Parry, on television, on radio, in print, online. You're on every platform. A quick word from you before we sink our teeth into these big stories of the day with the great British public, our amazing viewers. A simple question for you. Will this be the year of the Sunak or the year of the Starmer?
Well, it won't be the year of either, will it? Because the election's not going to be this year, is it? Fortunately. So I see what you mean.
Highly unlikely, isn't it?
Highly unlikely.
Who do you think will have a better year? Because in a way, they've both got an opportunity, haven't they? Because Starmer's got a year to demonstrate that he's prime ministerial material. Sunak's got a year to do the job bloody well.
Well, Rishi recently issued the 5-point plan, didn't he? How recently was that? Was it this week?
That was Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's right, the 5-point plan. And that seems to have settled everybody down. It settled the markets down, and the pound went up. It settled Conservative voters down, and it settled, actually, what I would call the Tory hierarchy down, in the sense that we might not have another revolution this year. But I think there's still room for a revolution when the May elections come round. I think I first announced my theory on this on your show a few weeks ago, that if it gets really bad for the Tories... However, I believe very, very strongly in the silent majority in this country. And I still think that the silent majority believe that the Tories are better able to manage the finances of this country, despite you know, the terrible time. Keir Starmer is changing his clothes by the day. I don't believe that people believe what he's trying to tell us he believes in.
I've got to say, Mike Parry, always with his finger on the pulse. That happens to be my view as well. I don't think either of these politicians are perfect, but I happen to think that shares in Keir Starmer are currently too high and shares in Rishi Sunak are too low.
Lovely way to put it. Well done, Mark. Lovely way to put it.
And Mike, as a man of means, will know that you buy shares when they're low, not high. Easy for me to say. Mike is here for the next hour. Can't wait to get through all those big stories. And we're going to sink our teeth into the issue of the NHS next. How do we fix it? We've also got, was William right to give Harry a slap in the face? And should it be harder to get divorced? It's your opinions next.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight and the People's Hour, in which I'm taking your video calls alongside Fleet Street legend, the Pele of the papers, Mike Porky Parry. Now, let's kick off with one of the big stories of the week and our NHS in crisis, with ambulances queuing outside hospitals, unable to even get patients into the building, with nurses on strike and a waiting list of over 7 million. And with the service collapsing under the weight of COVID and influenza patients, just how can we fix the NHS? The Prime Minister called an emergency meeting this morning. If you were around that table, what would you be advising him? I'll ask Mike Porky Parry in just a moment, but let's speak to Alan in North Hampshire. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Mark, and hello, M&Ms.
Nicely done. Alan, what is, no pun intended, what is your prescription for the NHS, as a very wise man of the world that you are?
OK, my prescription for the NHS is broken, and you're not going to fix it until the broken country is fixed. All we're doing is putting plaster over plaster over plaster. And as you know, the more plasters, the less adhesion.
Yeah.
So the country needs to be fixed. And by fix, I really do mean a completely new political system. I'm not advocating communism or anything extreme like that. But we do need to change things. And maybe GB News needs to have some serious debates with some of your wonderful presenters, such as Neil Oliver, David Starkey, Mark Stein, people who come from all directions.
Let's not forget Mike Porky Parry. Holly, can you bring Mike Porky Parry into this, because he's got the right to reply, of course. I hope Nigel Farage gets a shout. Alan.
Yeah. And definitely Nigel Farage, because he's a kingpin to the solution.
I think you've made a very...
Mike Parry is wonderful. I just wish he'd stop doing that all the time.
Well, that's OK, but I just need to know that I'm the man of the people, you see what I mean?
And also, didn't you pick up that habit from your hero, Paul McCartney?
Yes, I did, actually. Yeah, I did. Except I think he probably picked it up from me, because I'm older, I'm younger than him.
But listen, Mike, you've been reporting on the NHS for decades.
Sure.
What's your prescription?
Right, well, let's get it concise, because, you know, this is a tight programme. We're going to get the facts over. Since 2010... according to the King Fund formula, the budget for the NHS has increased by 50%. I mean that literally, from 120 billion in 2010. 2010, of course, was when David Cameron first took control under the coalition government, OK? So people who say the Tories don't put enough money into the NHS, it's gone up 50%. That is 70 billion in those 12 years. So that means that the Tory heart there is right. But what's wrong is the way you've used that 70 billion. It's been wasted. It's largely been used on middle managers. Do you know there are 8,000 diversity officers in Whitehall across all public services, and about 30% of them are dealing with the NHS. Of course I want diversity. I want the NHS to represent the country we live in, but you don't need 8,000 diversity officers, some of whom get paid over £100,000. What about the middle managers? All we ever see on the picket lines are nurses. All we ever see going to hospitals are doctors. When do we ever see the middle manager? This is the guy whose responsibility is to economically run a hospital and make it work. We never see them. There's far too many middle managers. Half of the whole NHS budget is spent on wages, literally. Shouldn't at least 2/3 or 3/4 of the NHS budget be spent on delivering care at the coalface?
Yeah, Alan, what do you think about that? Are you persuaded by Mike Porky Parry's prescription?
Oh, I go along totally with it. But it's not just the NHS who's drowning in middle management. The country is drowning in middle management.
Yeah, I agree.
The civil service isn't fit for purpose.
Totally.
So it's not, you know, everybody has to play a part. There's too many people not playing a part.
And listen, what about money, Alan? Is money a factor? I'm a big fan of the statistic that the NHS costs every household in the country £13,000 a year, 1-3. £160 billion. Surely it's not about cash anymore, Alan.
Every family in this country has to budget. They know how much they can spend on essentials. Isn't it time that the government started doing the same with all the state companies and the statehood generally?
Yeah.
Well, Mike, Mike's worked in the private sector for a long, long time. And the way businesses operate, Mike, is there is accountability. It's about the bottom line.
Yes.
A lean, mean business like GB News cannot have waste because we wouldn't survive.
No, of course we wouldn't. Now, this is Saturday night and we're working here at GB News, OK? And do you know what? GB News also works on Friday afternoon and it works on Sunday. The NHS does not work from 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon until 9 o'clock on Monday morning. And you're going to say, how do you know that? A few years ago, my dear beloved mother died. She was in Bournemouth Hospital for the last sort of few months of her life. I used to go and see her on a Sunday, and it was like visiting the Mary Celeste. There was nobody in there. And this is not an apocryphal story. This is me witnessing the fact that all these huge corridors were empty. All these great clinical rooms were empty. And I said to somebody, I said, hang on, what happens if my mum needs a bit of treatment today? He said, you better cross your fingers. Because actually, from about 2 o'clock on Friday till Monday morning, there is nobody here. Now, this is the very point I'm making about the middle managers. Do the middle managers just want to make their life cosy? Is the NHS, in fact, being run for the benefit of the people who are employed there? Or is it being run for the millions of people in this country who pay for it and want a decent service?
Alan, I'm going to give you the last word. What does the new improved NHS look like?
Oh, wow, that is a hell of a question. What does the new improved NHS look like? I suppose the one word that comes to mind is streamline, or two words, streamline and efficient. And that's what we're looking for. You know, the money is wasted that's being piled into it at the moment. Make that money count. Make every penny count and let it be shown where that money is going. Let's have transparency.
Alan for Health Secretary. Alan, a brilliant contribution. We'll see you very soon indeed. Coming up in the People's Hour, should it be harder to get a divorce? Is it time to make it harder in order to protect the family unit? But before that, was William right to give Harry a right royal slap? See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the People's Hour, in which I'm taking your video calls in the company of broadcasting and Fleet Street legend, the Pele of the papers, Mike Porky Parry. And let me say that we've been trying to connect with a very good friend of ours, Michaela, and unfortunately there's a bit of a technical problem, but we're very keen to get Michaela back on a future show. So thanks for bearing with us, Michaela. We miss you tonight. Now, perhaps the biggest revelation from Prince Harry's forthcoming new book, Spare, is that his brother William physically struck him, breaking his chain and causing him to fall to the floor via a dog bowl, of all things. Was this a step too far from William, or was he right to give the entitled and spoiled Harry a bit of a slap? Isn't that what brothers do? Let's speak to Robin in St Albans. Hi, Robin.
Hi, good evening, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Great to have you back on the show. You live in St Albans. In Roman times, brothers would have sorted this out with a bit of fisticuffs. Don't you think that William was within his rights to rough his brother up a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's quite hilarious because if you think about it, both of them were in the military. You know, Harry's supposedly been on the front line fighting the Taliban. And getting knocked down by his brother onto a dog bowl and having his chain broken is hardly a big story amongst brothers. So it all seems to be much about nothing. I personally think poor old Harry's had a bad week.
Yeah. He's had a shocker, hasn't he? But it does. Robin, I don't think I'd fancy my chances in a showdown with you in a dark alley. And obviously, I don't think either of us will advocate violence. But as I've said, you know, it sounds to me from this anecdote like William has just roughed him up a bit. My brother's done that with me, and perhaps I've attempted vice versa. And I think the real crime here is not what William did, but that Harry's gone public with it.
Oh no, absolutely. But I think actually, if you go back to this whole thing, in my opinion, Harry chose to marry for love, which is a bit of an anathema to the royal family. That's not normally what they do. And I think that the royal family clearly didn't take to this and clearly said things about Harry's wife that I think any of us would go out and defend our wives, girlfriends, daughters, etc. So I kind of have a little bit of sympathy for him, and I understand why he's writing the book and why he's doing what he does, because you know, he's in need of a lot of money, probably a bit more now to protect himself even further against the Taliban. So I kind of get why it happened.
Let's bring Andrew in Essex, if we can. Do stay there, Robin. And let's see what Andrew thinks about this, because Andrew, one of the issues is about the future of their relationship. Well, it appears to be no more, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and obviously, you know, they're part of the, you know, the monarchy in this country, and I feel actually Harry and Meghan are absolute disgrace. They should be completely got rid of from the monarchy. You know, the late Queen treated everyone equally, and she was a real role model. And actually, why is Harry being so self-centered? You know, if people have disputes in the family, they don't necessarily need to air it. If a student's annoyed me, I don't start telling the managing director of my organisation, you know, this, they did that. I just let it go. Harry needs to grow up. I'm 40 this year, and I'm looking at what's going to happen in the future. I split up with my ex-partner 3 years ago. I didn't slag that particular person off in public. You know, the way in which he's done that to coin money, to make money on the media, and to be honest, I've actually had enough. There's enough going on in the world, and you know, I'm sorry. I'm very much of William and Kate. They have really embraced their role, and William actually is more admirable and more of a role model. Harry is very much about me, and personally, I do not want him at the King celebration coming up later in this year. You know, that I really don't like him at all. I'm sorry.
Andrew, before I come to Mike Porky Parry, you're very critical of Harry and Meghan. Does that make you a terrible racist?
I don't think so. I work with students from multiple countries, multiple faiths. I've worked in the higher education sector now for over 11 years. I have got a different opinion of Meghan because of the way she is compared to Kate. Kate has embraced her role, and no, it's just how she is, her demeanour. I have friends that are international. In fact, this morning I was actually meeting up with a former student who was asking for my advice. She happens to be from Greece. So no, I'm not racist or anything like that. I just don't think the way that she is particularly a royal. I see Catherine as a modern Diana.
Too right. In effect. I think you're right, and she's even got Diana's ring. Andrew, you'll have noticed the hint of irony. My tongue was in my cheek when I asked you if you were racist, because Mike Porky Parry, let's bring Mike into this as well as Robin. This is one problem you've got, is that if you dare to criticise this couple, you're somehow attacking Meghan Markle and her skin colour. And that's the problem. In some ways, one is afraid to speak out against these people for their bad behaviour because you'll get a slur. Michael?
Well, I think that went a long time ago, to be honest. I mean, initially, what they seem to have forgotten is we spent £35 million of taxpayers' money on the wedding. And the wedding was seen as the greatest moment in the history of the royal family because a woman of colour had actually joined the royal family and everybody was absolutely delighted. And, diversity had been proven.
Michael, your friends at the Daily Mail... one of the headlines around the time of the wedding was a wonderfully and magically diverse new wedding.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, Andrew, your last guest who was on here, says he's
Robin.
nearly... wasn't it Robin and Andrew?
Yeah, so this is Andrew now and Robin previous.
OK. Now, Andrew, you said you're nearly 40. I want people to remember that actually Harry is nearly 40. Right? We forget that. He's not a young kid anymore. He's not, in his early 20s. He's not still suffering the terrible trauma of what he went through when his mother died. He's a grown man. Now, it's obvious that he's been carrying this grudge about being the second son or the spare for a long time. And I think what happened is he met Meghan Markle, who's a very ambitious woman. And nobody can criticise anybody for their ambition. And she wanted to improve her life. And she saw a way of improving it by getting together with Harry and then got inside the royal family and then decided she had a plan to go another way. That's fine. That was her plan. I think Harry went along with all of that far too easily without questioning it. And now he is so spiteful towards his family because somehow over the years he's become more and more bitter and concerned about being the second brother. Can I remind people who are historians like me, this goes back as far as Richard the Lionheart. When Richard the Lionheart went out to the Holy City on the Crusades, old John, the guy who tried to put down Robin of Sherwood, tried to take his throne. That's how long it's been going on inside the royal family. The younger brother trying to take over the older brother's privilege, OK?
Well, let me tell you, I really enjoyed that history lesson. Simon Sharma, eat your heart out. I'm going to bring Robin in 1 second, but back to you, Andrew. You've been nodding your head furiously.
Yes, well, this is my point. He needs to act his age. When you get to my age and you've had, I've had a couple of bereavements a few years ago, you have to move on. And, the fact that what he's doing is being very spiteful and very self-centered. Him and Meghan, ironically, they wanted a life away from the media, that they're having attention put on them because of the way they're acting. I advocate for neurodiversity as in my role, and I'm a neurodiverse person myself, and I'm proud of that. If I said I didn't want people to know that, I wouldn't put that on my Twitter handle, or I wouldn't let my boss know. But I work for a social enterprise. So what my problem is this whole self-centeredness and the behaviour. And William, he will be our future king. The two of them need to have like a kind of agreed to make up or grow up, or you know, to make it easier for everyone, Meghan and Harry need to start and just be done with them.
Amen to that. Let's bring Robin back in as well. Let's have Mike, let's have Robin, and let's have the wonderful Andrew. I believe it's what young people call a thruple. I'm in a thruple now.
Yeah.
A bit of a love sandwich. I don't know who I'm going to jump on first, but listen, Robin, can we talk about the role of King Charles? Because I understand that you're a father. I'm told you have a very beautiful and talented daughter. So if you had to straighten her out, would you be tough? You know, would it be tough love for William and Harry if you were Charles? What should he do? Because in many ways, he's the boss.
Absolutely. The thing is, though, right? You've got in a family, if my family were going public in the press on virtually every television screen around the world, giving their opinions on me, I think I might want to actually fight back and give my opinions. So I think that Harry should have a forum to do that, because I do think that if you look at the media, pretty much every medium outlet has a royal correspondent, and that royal correspondent pretty much plays to the game with royalty and puts in the papers what they want to be put in the papers.
No,
I think
no, that's not right. That's not right.
So I'm sorry. When do you ever see a royal correspondent actually say something derogatory about the royal family? Because they'll lose their job. I do think that Harry's got the right to fight back. I'm not saying I'm supporting him. I'm just saying I think he has the right to fight back.
For 2 decades, I was running newspapers in Fleet Street where every day Prince Charles was condemned for the way that he treated his wife Diana, condemned for having an affair with Camilla. He was, you say that Fleet Street and the media don't criticise the royal family.
Well, Michael,
you're
not
crazy.
those,
it's been going on forever.
Not those vanilla idiots on television and radio.
Been going on forever, honestly, the royal family. The problem with Harry is, it seems to me like about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody smacked him in the face with a pan. Do you see what I mean? And he sort of got a bit dazed, and then, you know, he got a few ideas in his head about how he could improve his life by living in a £16 million home in Montesino, and he's now wandering around, in my view, in a daze, talking the most utterable nonsense. But it's not just nonsense if it's dangerous, and he has put the whole of the British Army, the whole of the British military under threat by this ridiculous nonsense about how many people he killed in Afghanistan.
He's not pulling his punches, but Robin's not having it. A brilliant debate. My thanks to the excellent Robin and Andrew. Chaps, we'll see you very soon. But next up, at 9, my big opinion monologue. I am going for it tonight. The siren voices seeking those failed and ruinous lockdowns are back. Just say no. But next up in the People's Hour, we're going out with a bang. Should it be harder to get divorced? See you in a few.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back to the final part of the People's Hour with me, Mark Dolan. Don't forget, at 9, it's all of your favourite elements of Mark Dolan tonight. The Big Opinion monologue, The Take at 10, the panel, the papers, and so much more. And the papers, by the way, at 10:20, 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. But let's get to our final story in the People's Hour. Monday is an unwelcome red letter day in the calendar. It's Divorce Day, in which the greatest number of couples decide to go their separate ways. But with divorce rates growing exponentially, with the resultant impact on the individuals involved, and of course in particular their children, should we look again at the law around this to preserve family values and to give relationships a chance of succeeding? Should it be more difficult to get divorced? Let's speak to Francis in Salisbury. I ought to point out that Francis is married to his dog Chaos. Hi, Francis.
Hi, Mark. Very happy New Year to you and to Mike Porky Parry, because we've been on with him as well as you, so last year. But Chaos has had a good Christmas and a good New Year, and we're certainly not getting divorced.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it.
But,
what do you think?
But more seriously, you know, at this time of the year, the solicitors are out touting for business, as they always do. Of course, the Christmas period does bring stresses and strains, but my advocacy is that although there's the new no-blame legislation, which I think is helpful in that it allows for less contentious divorces, maybe cheaper divorces, that's not really a recipe for taking life forward for family units. My concern is that not enough attention is actually being paid to reconciliation and to trying to look after family units, because the costs, not only to families, but also to the state in terms of the numbers of one-parent families that then result, and the children, are immense, and we really can't overlook that. So my feeling is that we've really got to work harder at reconciliation, whether that's through church, whether that's through other organisations, and just not see marriage as a sort of well, we'll get in and have a bit of fun, and then we'll get out again, and there'll be no consequences to anybody. I just don't understand that. Now, I'm a hypocrite because I'm 6 years separated from, sadly, a very damaged lady as to mental and physical health. But I've not sought to divorce her. Why? Because I could do a quickie. That would not be a problem. But because I'm worried about the impact on, admittedly now an adult son, but it would be an impact on him. And I'm also worried about the impact on her because I don't want her making her illness worse through naked hatred of me. Fine. She might have naked hatred, but I can put up with it. I don't talk to her any day, like since 2016. So let's crack on. Let's be positive. I think lots of people, these news stories are all framed in the negative. The solicitors are out touting for business. Let's not let them off because they're out touting for business because it's a year's business that they'll get out of this. So I'm all for, not slowing down divorce because, the worst thing is to have two irreconcilable sides in a family.
Well, I think it's very, very creditable that you've considered your ex-partner and you're not pushing for divorce. And it says a lot about you, I've got to say, Francis. Let's speak to Michaela in Elgin in Scotland. We had trouble connecting with Michaela earlier, but she's back on her phone. Michaela, I believe that you're happily single. Do you think it should be harder to get divorced?
I think it should get easier.
Oh.
No way.
Now, why do you say that, Michaela?
Yes. Well, I think the trend is far more towards cohabiting these days.
No way.
And it says it's increased by 144% during 1996 to 2021. And I think I agree that there needs to be more support, whether it is marriage breakdown or cohabitation breakdown. As you've rightly said, first of all, a lot of people feel like they're a failure when that happens. There's an impact on them. And also, as you've said, on the children. It's immeasurable what happens in some cases to the children. They carry it for the rest of their lives, if there are children. So I think that there needs to be a whole new thought process about support and how to make, when breakdowns happen, how to make it far more sensitive, caring and compassionate to all those involved. That is the only way, and that includes the children, because often the children can be so deeply affected with arguments and, what's the trauma of the breakdown itself when it's absolutely, broken down. So I think I wish the whole of Parliament and of social services and the law can sit down and really think about this in a far more compassionate way.
Well, I think compassion is a compelling word. Michael, let's bring you in, and let's also hang on, if we can, to Michaela and indeed to Francis as well. Mike Parry, you get the last word on this.
Yeah. Look, divorce is one thing. What I really care about is the family unit. We all know that the nuclear family, mum, dad, children, all living under the same roof, is the safest way to have a civilised and democratic society, OK? 80% of people who get into trouble and end up in jail come from families where there have not been two parents and usually no father, no male model role, OK? Yeah. That's got to be corrected. The government have got to do it through tax benefits to being married.
Amen. There you go. Incentivise family values. Mike, you smashed it tonight. Do come back and see us soon. My thanks to all of my fantastic panellists. It's been a great debate. If you'd like to be part of the People's Hour, drop me a line, mark@gbnews.uk. Coming up, the next big 2 hours of Mark Dolan tonight, and we kick off with my big opinion monologue. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 9 o'clock on Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, the NHS crisis is no justification for more ruinous and failed COVID measures. As the siren voices call for masks and work from home grow louder, we must draw a line under these wildly discredited measures. Just say no. We got the papers at the earlier time of 10:20 right through until 11 o'clock. That's 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. And we will get analysis from Britain's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Nelson. In the big question, as more and more sex toys hit the high street, we'll be asking, do you want to see sex toys on supermarket shelves? And in the news agenda with my panel, as millennials reveal they dread turning 30, is it time for young people to grow up? Also, should companies be more generous to their staff? Plus, as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? Would you freeze a relative? Let me know, Mark at gbnews.uk. Lots to get through. A big 2 hours, and that big opinion is on its way. But first, the big man himself, Aaron Armstrong.
Hello, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Let's get you up to date with all the latest top stories. The Prime Minister found talks with health experts to tackle the NHS crisis as highly valuable, according to Downing Street. Rishi Sunak met health leaders to discuss critical challenges in the NHS, which senior doctors believe is on a knife edge. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, says at least 2 innovative solutions have been identified to tackle some of the challenges facing the sector. And Chief Executive of the Day-Lewis Pharmacy Group, Jay Patel, says the talks were constructive.
You know, the session was a small group of us, lots of insight in terms of what the problems really are out there, balance between community pharmacy and general practice, and some great description of what the core issues are out there on the ground. The PM was very receptive to what we discussed and we explained the issues, and we swiftly moved on to looking at options that we could put into place to be able to rapidly see if we can alleviate some of those challenges.
Police searching for a missing couple and their baby have released a CCTV image believed to be that of the mother, some 200 miles from where they were last seen. Ms Martin, Mark Gordon and their child have been missing since their vehicle broke down near Junction 4 of the M61 on Thursday. That's near Bolton. Well, Greater Manchester Police are appealing for the mother, Constance Martin, to make contact and seek medical assistance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia's call for a ceasefire had been deceptive, adding that shells have hit the eastern city of Bakhmut, where this resident has described the damage.
Our town used to be so beautiful. There were roses everywhere, flowers. It was clean. Everything was kept in order.
Well, Russian shelling has continued in Ukraine in violation of the self-declared ceasefire for Orthodox Christmas, which has now ended. Kyiv immediately dismissed the proposal as propaganda and a cynical trap. The Kremlin, though, claims its troops only fired in retaliation to attacks from Ukrainian forces. The Foreign Secretary has condemned Iran's execution of 2 demonstrators. James Cleverly called the hangings abhorrent and urged Iran to immediately end the violence against its own people. Iran executed the 2 men for allegedly killing a member of the security forces during nationwide protests following the death of the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman, Mahsa Amini, last September. Prince Harry claims he was not the real best man at his brother's wedding. In more leaked excerpts from his memoir, the Duke of Sussex reportedly says the role was fulfilled by Prince William's 2 closest friends. Referring back to his military days, he added that he killed 25 Taliban fighters, a claim which has been criticised by both the British Army and the Taliban. And flood warnings are in place across England and Wales as heavy downpours are set to hit the UK overnight. There are 27 flood warnings in place for England, with 8 warnings in place for Wales, and the Scottish Environment Protection Agency has issued 6 flood alerts for Scotland. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. But now it is back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thanks, Aaron. See you at 10. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the NHS crisis is no justification for more ruinous COVID measures. As the siren voices for masks and work from home grow louder, we must draw a line under these wildly discredited measures. Just say no. In the big question, as more and more sex toys hit the high street, we'll be asking, do you want to see sex toys on supermarket shelves? Also, we've got the papers at the earlier time of 10:20 right through until 11. That's 10 minutes earlier than every other national broadcaster. And we'll be joined for top analysis by Britain's longest-serving political editor, a good friend of mine, Nigel Nelson, who, as we speak, is currently putting the paper to bed. So he's live at 10:20. Before that, we'll be heading stateside with the wonderful Kinsey Scofield for more reaction to the fallout from Prince Harry's forthcoming new book. She is the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, and she's live at 9:45. In my take at 10, former Chancellor George Osborne, now chairman of the British Museum, wants to give away British treasure. In this forthcoming deal with Greece to return precious artworks saved from the ravages of war, we've lost our marbles. Plus, in the news agenda with my panel, as millennials reveal that they dread turning 30, is it time for young people to grow up? Also, should companies be more generous to their staff? And as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? Would you like to have your body frozen, just on the off chance? Or would you freeze your auntie? It would be polite, though, to wait until she's passed. Reacting to those stories and many more are my fantastic panel tonight. Television personality, reality star, commentator, broadcaster, sage, no less, and quite the clothes horse as well. It's Precious Muir. We've also got the incredibly sartorially elegant Olympian broadcaster, motivational speaker, and friend of the show, Chris Akabusi. And last but not least, the absolute genius of GB News, one of my favourite contributors to this channel, writer and research analyst, and very, very debonair wearer of a dark, dark black turban, just like James Bond. It's Rakib Hassan. And he's licensed to kill. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. No other show on any platform puts as much focus on your email messages, so send them in thick and fast. No one gets cancelled, not on my watch. Mark at gbnews.uk. Now, this programme has a golden rule. Sebastian, are you ready? We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it, especially on a Saturday night. So there you go. Big guests, big stories, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. As the NHS faces its usual winter pressures exacerbated by its 2.5-year focus on one disease, the siren voices calling for mask mandates, stay-at-home orders, and in the most extreme cases, yet more COVID isolation, well, they grow louder. As usual, it's all about saving the NHS. And there's the rub. How much more economic damage can we inflict on ourselves, and for how much longer can we pursue, in my view, the wildly failed policies of masking, lockdowns, and endless testing? The test and trace system, for example, cost £34 billion. That's more than half the annual defence budget. With a virus that raged through the population, it was a catastrophic waste of time and money. And what about those pathetic PCR tests? Those clunky bits of kit discarded into landfill and adding to an ever-growing mountain of COVID-related plastic in the sea. Surely we can't repeat the deadly mistakes of the past. There's going to be a winter crisis in the NHS every year. And if we don't push back on these now discredited measures, we never will. The fundamental problem with the NHS is its organisation, its vast bureaucracy, and the fact that it's the biggest employer in Europe, which people boast about. They boast about how the NHS is the biggest employer in Europe, the third biggest employer in the world. That's not a proud boast. That is proof that it's wildly inefficient. It's bloated. It's too big. It's too expensive, and it must change or die. Asleep at the wheel for decades as preventable lifestyle illnesses like type 2 diabetes have exploded. That is the real reason why we're here, not that novel virus from Wuhan, which arrived in March 2020. The calls for COVID measures, whether it's masks or work from home orders or social distancing or those ridiculous plastic screens in shops or arrows in supermarkets, it's all just a smokescreen, COVID theatre, and an opportunity for politicians and health leaders to be seen to do something and to distract you from the truth. The masks is a case in point. They want to cover your faces to cover their arses. To hear top medics, scientists and prominent media figures seeking more of this folly after everything we've learned is akin to your abuser once again knocking on the bedroom door. Just say no. This isn't about COVID. The elephant in the room is the NHS itself, which is the real casualty of this pandemic. That's my view. What's yours? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your opinions shortly, but first, let's get the views of my amazing panel. Olympian broadcaster and good friend of the show, Chris Akabusi, television personality and broadcaster, Precious Muir, and top writer and research analyst, Rakib Hassan. Precious Muir, let's start with you. Should we have these measures to save the NHS?
I don't think the measures that they're going to bring back in place are effective. I don't think that having these plastic things in front of, in front of somebody at a restaurant or a store makes any sense to me, because it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. If you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. I think it should be a choice if you want to wear a mask, but I don't think anything should be mandatory. I feel like we all have a choice as adults and we can actually make that decision for ourselves.
Chris Akabusi, what do you think? Would you accept more measures given the fact that the scenes we're currently watching in NHS hospitals are increasingly distressing?
I think we've been there, we've done that, and I don't think it worked, as Precious was saying. What is clear is that the NHS was of its time and for its time, worked very, very well. But right here, right now, it's not working. We need to rethink, reorganise and replace it. If you were thinking of a healthcare system, no country in the world would run the NHS as it is today for the people of today. Above my pay grade to think about how we do represent it, but we obviously do need to represent it. But when it comes to things like the masks, I was a soldier, and we used to do something called NBC training, nuclear, biological and chemical warfare training, and we used to have these very complicated masks with things on the side which had charcoal in it to filter the air, etc., and make sure that no particles got through. Well, imagine putting on one of those plastic masks and going through a CS chamber, gas, you'll be out in 2 seconds. They quite clearly didn't work. It's much more about virtue signalling, much more about controlling the population, much more about uniformity. We've been there, we've done that. Hopefully we'll never go back to that sort of thing again.
Yeah, hopefully.
However, Rakib Hassan, a recent poll suggested the public would support further COVID measures if it meant easing pressure on the NHS. And whilst I agree very much with what Chris has said about masks, perhaps these measures, if not decisive, might save some lives and might reduce some pressure on the NHS. So even if the sort of cost-benefit analysis is marginal, if it's 1% better, then perhaps we should do it.
Well, I think that, as you said, it's all about the cost-benefit analysis. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19 pandemic, those kind of examinations were absent. There was understandably, our government officials and leading policymakers, they focused on the coronavirus, but that exceptional focus on the coronavirus meant that they didn't see the possible side effects of those strict rules that they put in place, especially the COVID-19 related lockdowns. And you can see now that we have extensive waiting lists for the NHS, well running into the millions of our fellow citizens. I think that what we need to do, we need to look at the long-term future of the NHS. The way it's currently structured and organised is not fit for purpose, especially for an ageing society such as ours. Now, of course, we can talk about ways to generate funding, but I think we have to actually look at how the organisation is working, how it's internally structured, and how much waste is within the organisation. There are many roles within the NHS, middle-level managerial roles. I have to question how much benefit they're bringing to the table when it comes to improving health-related outcomes in our country. And I think that more generally, when we're talking about health outcomes in our country, we need to look at preventative measures. How do we create a more resilient population, which is healthier? There have been numerous studies which show that we're the obesity capital of Western Europe. That can't continue. That's not sustainable. So what we need to do, we need to look at how we can foster a greater level of fitness in the wider population, and that can help to reduce stress on a publicly funded healthcare service in the longer term.
Not too many people disagree with the idea that you have free healthcare at the point of need. I don't want to live in a country, I don't think my panel wants to live in a country where if you break your leg, you've got to reach for your credit card. I don't want the American system. But later in the show, during the papers, I'll be asking my panel whether one of the big problems with the NHS is that it's founded on an effectively socialist model. Is that the problem? Should it be run more like a business without, per se, privatising it? We'll come to that shortly. But what are your views? Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up, with the news that 20-somethings reveal they're dreading turning 30. That's right, young people are afraid of turning 30. Is it time for them to simply grow up? Also, should companies be more generous to their staff? And as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? But next up, let me tell you that adult devices are appearing in the high streets. OK, all sorts of unusual vibrating bits and bobs. So here's my question in the big question. Do you want to see sex toys on supermarket shelves? That's next.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion monologue. The highlight of my show every night is when I receive your emails. So thank you. Hundreds coming in. Mark at gbnews.uk. Always brilliantly written. Always a fascinating read. And I love it when we agree. I love it when we don't agree. So do get those emails in. This from Margareta, who says, "Hi, Mark. I came to this country in 1988. The change is huge. It's so broken now. It's finally gone. They need to sack all of the useless admin and strip it right back and start again and start saving lives. Also, we should all pay a little towards it for appointments, etc. I'm from Norway," says Margrethe. And we do that there, and our health system is great. What's happening in the UK is embarrassing and dangerous. Wake up, Britain, says Margrethe. Thank you so much. What a lovely country Norway is. I've done some comedy gigs in Stavanger. What a town. An oil town. And great crowds as well. Not as good as this crowd, however. How about David, who says, Mark, we've gone bonkers and we can't continue. The answer should be common sense, fact and understanding. I agree the NHS needs change. More money won't help as it just pays more management that we do not require. Aisha, I hope I've pronounced that right, Aisha. And if not, email me in and correct me. Aisha's in Kent and she says, hi, Mark. Everything in this country goes back to a broken benefit system. The amount of money being fraudulently obtained by people on benefits is a big destroyer of our NHS. If half of those malingering layabouts got off their backsides and paid tax, the NHS, which is broken, could easily be fixed. Oh, there you go. Well, look, I could read your emails all day long. How about this, finally, from Chris? Hi, Mark. They knew the cost of lockdown. They had the numbers from Bristol University. It was a choice. The NHS is an easy fix. We're told it costs £10,000 per person. Give me the money because I can get Bupa with a GP for £110 a month at 57. Chris, thank you for that. I do think there's a worry now that the NHS in time will become like the BBC, the service that everyone's got to pay for, but one only a portion of people actually use. It's time now for this. Yes, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Now, since 2019, the high street chemist Boots began stocking a range of sex toys, which you can find nestled between the cold cures and bunion plasters. Now, as more and more high street retailers stock the adult devices, we're asking, do you want to see sex toys on supermarket shelves? Joining me to discuss this is sexual wellness content creator Venus O'Hara and television commentator, reality star and all-round legend Narinder Kaur. Narinder, great to see you. Let me start with Venus O'Hara. Venus, the public don't want to see these devices when they're buying headache pills or tights.
Well, I disagree because an orgasm can cure headache. So the oldest excuse is now has been debunked. So I think it's actually a good thing. I can understand it's not everyone is on board with it. But interestingly, I live in Spain, and one day I was in a hardware store. I wanted to buy a bikini trimmer, and in the same aisle, I found sex toys, and I thought it was incredible. So I made a reel for Instagram. And to my surprise, lots of sex shops were actually horrified by it because they want to be the only places that stock these devices. But I think for me, not everyone feels comfortable buying a sex toy in a sex shop. And also buying it online can have another risk because they tend to be quite expensive. They're not cheap, especially the rechargeable ones. So I think it's a good thing to have them more available. And the one thing I have to point out is that when you see these devices, you might not really understand what they are because they don't look vulgar. The packaging is quite elegant and they just look like they're very similar to a facial massages. There are other devices that look similar to sex toys that aren't sex toys. So I don't think they look too scandalous.
Narinder Kaur, do you want to see sex toys on supermarket shelves?
Well, as a mother to a teenage daughter, no, I'm repulsed that they have sex toys where there are minors. And they do look repulsive. They're penis-shaped. I think it's disgusting. Honestly, I was online on a famous fashion online website and looking for clothes with my daughter, and there you had sex toys. I thought they were head massagers at first, and then I realised when I zoomed in it was a penis-shaped sex toy. I just think it's terrible to have that where there's minors. How can you justify that?
What do you think? How would you respond to that, Venus? Why can't we have a dedicated area in a shop or indeed special shops for these devices in case not only young people see them, but even pick one up?
Well, the thing is, when I was growing up, going to buy my sweets in the newsagent, they had all sorts of magazines, and a human form is much more recognisable than a plastic toy like this, which is just not so scandalous. If you look at that, I mean, people are not going to think it looks like a penis. Actually, most toys do not look like penises in this day and age. I have a spare room with 750 toys that I have accumulated in the last 10 years because this is my job. And I can tell you, I only have one or two veiny phalluses. Most of them look like beautiful objects. Like this looks like a paperweight, you know? So they just don't look like sex toys. And the image you've shown there's only two that are phallic. Some of them are round shapes, and others are a kind of a shape that looks like an ear thermometer. So I don't think if someone picks it up and just say it's for a massage, you know, I think there are ways of talking about these things it could be age appropriate.
They're not age appropriate at all. They're not age appropriate. They're not age appropriate for minors. Yeah, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and I think she wouldn't even know, and I wouldn't even, if she asked about that, it's not so much pressure, the whole sex thing and the whole, we must enjoy sex and sex must be great and you must have a great sex life. For teenagers, no, and children don't need to know about this. There's a place for this. I think online's great, special shops are great. And actually, back to your thing about supermarkets selling cheaper, you're just taking business away from the sex shops, actually, because supermarkets have a monopoly on everything. So, but more than anything, children don't need to have this pressure, especially teenage girls, that sex is everything.
Narinder, do you think that these devices, Venus, I'll come back to you in a moment, do you think these devices are bad for society?
I don't think they're bad for, well, they are if they're on display in supermarkets where there's children, yes, because they don't need that pressure. They're children, and there's children around that they're going to ask questions, and they do look phallic, and I know all of them don't, but I just don't think no, I think they are bad, yes. There's a pressure on sex constantly. This sex must be great, and you must have this sex toy. We don't need that pressure.
I'll let you come back to that, Venus. By the way, Venus, you've got 750 sex toys in your bedroom. I'm amazed you get anything done.
My spare room. My room is empty, but I had to get an apartment with two bedrooms and one for the actual sex toys. Just because it's like I have more toys than most shops, basically. So
do they ever wake you up?
Do they ever what?
Do they ever wake you up?
Oh, no, but there are sex toys that have alarms, by the way. So there are, if you want to be woken up with a vibration, which might be nicer than a sound, then some people that option exists. But I think these objects are quite beautiful. I don't think people look at them and think, oh, what is that? And most of them are not penis shaped because most women do need external stimulation. So from something like this is going to work better than something that looks like a phallus. And I remember growing up and just seeing say, porn in newsagents, and that for me is much more shocking. Also for now, children are having access to lots of porn from a very young age, and I think that's where we should be focusing our attention on, the smartphones and the type of content that minors are having access to. I think that's much worse than an object like this, which is not so relatable, not as relatable as a human body.
Narinder,
I agree with that, but we don't need it in supermarkets.
Okay, can I also ask you, Venus, what do you think about these devices in relation to husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, girlfriends, boyfriends? Surely it dilutes a relationship.
I think that's a common misconception, but the truth is that many women don't reach orgasm through intercourse. It's only 4%. Sorry?
I don't mean to brag, but I've been married a very long time and we've never needed a sex toy. But I think it's about variety. I think it's about variety, and you can actually, it's really good to change it up. And most sexual encounters follow a formula, which is kiss, caress, undress, optional oral sex, penetration, male orgasm, over. And if you want to kind of spice it up a little bit, it's nice to use a toy from time to time. I'm right, when I had in my last relationship and I was testing male sex toys, I kind of enjoyed watching my partner indulge while I just sat back and took notes and just observed. I think it's I don't think they are a rival to your real human partners, not at all. I think it's like, do you like pizza or chocolate cake? You can have them at different times, or maybe you want to have them together. I don't think it's one or the other. And I think that's a common misconception that I've heard over the years in my job. Like, why have you got that? Or female friends telling me, I have a boyfriend, I don't need that. Whereas I think I think masturbation is a very healthy thing, and that's my opinion. That's what the industry I'm from. But I understand not everyone agrees with that. But I would challenge it. I think it's good to connect with your body and boost your self-esteem. I don't think that's the question here, though. I think the question is, do children need to see in supermarkets? And in answer to that, no, they don't.
But I think a lot of children are not going to recognise what it is. And, children are seeing things from a very young age which are recognisable, like porn on their smartphones. And I think that's way worse. Or images, when I was growing up, going to sweets and seeing these magazines, which felt very kind of strange for me. I remember when I was staying at a friend's house when I was very, very young, and she showed me her dad's porn stash, this video of the 80s. It was all, I was so shocked, but I can imagine what it must be like for children now being exposed to so much explicit material. I don't think a plastic toy is the same. I really don't. And I think talking about sexuality is a healthy thing. I think we should be talking about it with teenagers in a healthy way, and so that they know what to expect. Because, I mean, what they're expecting now is they're seeing porn, and then some people are maybe reflecting what they see on a smartphone, which is not how sex should be.
This is just added pressure. Sex toys are just added pressure. Everything is sex, sex, sex. Children don't need it shoved down their throats. Literally, we don't need that. As a parent, I'm not for this.
And on that strong visual image, ladies, look what I found in the GB News studio. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow.
You won't believe this, right? I actually found this in... Can I tell you, I found this in Dan Wootton's dressing room. Okay. He's back on Monday. No spin, no bias, no censorship. It's a hairbrush.
Oh!
I've disappointed you.
There are toys that are controlled by distance now. You can control toys through an app, and that's something that's kind of become quite popular since lockdown. So there's many ways to actually interact now. That's why sex toys are not a rival relationship.
There you go. So I'm going to buy one of these devices.
Tonight. So
listen, how can people find out more about what you do, Venus, before you go?
My Instagram is @VenusO'Hara, and my website is venusohara.org.
Loved our conversation. Venus, fascinating stuff. Thanks for joining us. The brilliant Narinder Kaur as well. Loved our chat. You can borrow my brush anytime you like. Lots more to get through before 11 o'clock. You know the golden rule of this show. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. What do you think of the barnet? I think I look smart for the first time ever. On a poll on Twitter, we asked you, the great British public, should supermarkets be selling sex toys? Just over 78% say no, 22% say yes. Coming out the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction, but a sneak peek at 10:20 with the Sunday Mirror's Nigel Nelson. In my take at 10, I'll be dealing with former Chancellor George Osborne. Has he lost his marbles? He wants to hand back British treasure, and I'll be telling you all about that at 10. I won't be pulling my punches. But next, as 20-somethings reveal they dread turning 30, is it time for young people to grow up? See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Parry.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now I'm delighted to say we're having huge success with the People's Hour, because every Friday and Saturday this show is now 3 hours long from 8 till 11, and every Saturday I take your video calls. Would you like to be a star on the show? Because I'd like to get to know you better. I love your emails, but I'd love to see you, and I'd love to put you on telly. So if you'd like to be in the People's Hour, drop me a line, mark@gbnews.uk, and just put People's Hour in the heading, and my team will be in touch. According to a survey from the charity Relate, 83% of Gen Zers, that's people aged between 16 and 24, feel anxious about turning 30 and feel pressure to reach certain life milestones. So it begs the question, is it time for young people to grow up? Let's speak to Chris Akabusi, Olympian broadcaster and inspirational speaker, very inspiring to me, TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, and writer and research analyst Rakib Ahsan. Rakib, let me start with you. We've got 20-somethings worrying about turning 30. Get over yourself.
I think they're in a difficult environment, though, aren't they? I think even compared to when I was that sort of age, I think they're in a harsher economic climate. I think house prices, even in just the last few years, there's been a bit of a slowing down, but they've increased exponentially in recent years. So I think they're in a more of a high-pressure environment than even I was, and I'm 32 years.
And they've got to deal with social media.
I think so.
They can't get on the housing ladder, as you mentioned, and I suppose, in a way, life just feels like, they've been handed a bad deal, as it were.
No, absolutely. I think that a lot of the young people in our country, they may well have aspirations, but they perhaps feel that at the moment they're in an increasingly long, dark tunnel and they can't quite see the light at the end of it.
Yeah, too right. Well, Precious, you are a young person in your prime.
Yeah.
What do you think about how things are for young people? Because I'm sort of torn between the fact that they're a bit, from my estimation, slightly entitled and snowflakey.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they're paying exorbitant rents.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, mum and dad are living rent-free in a mortgage-free house.
There you go. I mean, there's so much pressure, obviously, with the social media aspect of it all. I mean, you're trying to keep up with all these girls on Instagram, and they're trying to portray this kind of lifestyle. And at the end of the day, you're trying to aspire to things that possibly they don't even have. Remember, social media and society portray this thing where people have all these luxuries, and most of it's fake. So people need to get out of that mindset and stay in your own lane and kind of progress when you can. I know the pressure of being young and succeeding at everything you do, but then we've also got to take the aspect of maybe you shouldn't get married at 25 and have 3 kids. Maybe wait a little while and see where your life goes. I mean, I did that. I am young and I will always be 25, but I am a bit older now, and I married at 25 to somebody who was in New York, and I lived there for 10 years. So you can imagine the pressure that I was under, thinking at 25 I've got to be successful, I've got to be a great wife, I've got to have kids, and the pressure really came down on me, and it was time to go. It was the end of a relationship after 3 years.
So you had a bit of an early midlife crisis. I'm
an only child, so I advanced very quickly in life. My parents were very supportive, but they also said to me, you've got to progress and do things at an early age. I mean, I was signed to a model agency at 18 and flew to New York for 10 years. I mean, I literally grew up extremely fast. So now I'm kind of just taking a break and taking it easy a little bit, because I really was on this accelerating career, trying to figure out, being an adult so quickly. And I feel like at 30, yes, we have these pressures and we have society telling us to grow up and be independent, but it's not necessarily the thing for everyone to do. I don't think being married, having kids is the be-all, end-all of life.
Do young people have it tougher now, Chris?
I think the challenge that we have today in our multicultural society is the loss of rites of passage. So, you know, like the Jewish religion has bar mitzvahs when they're 15. We used to get the key to the door when we were 18 and 21, and you'd go out, in my day, disco in and all that sort of stuff, excuse me. Disco is plastic.
What, a bit of a boogie?
Yes, sir, I can boogie.
There you go.
Nice, upside down, Diana Ross.
So I just think that, you know, the lack of the rites of passage. However, for me, the 30s flew, the 20s flew by. I was in Hespen before I'm 35.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the challenges that young people may have is not having these focus-oriented things to achieve. I was a soldier, I was a sportsman, I was a husband, I was a father, and I was actually getting stuff done. And I can assure you...
But that's the thing, I think when you overdo it and you overthink stuff, you actually forget to live.
But that was living. Life happens while you're thinking about other stuff. It happens. Before I knew it, I was 35.
But you just said that 20s flew by.
Yeah, it did.
But maybe if you just took a step back, you actually might...
Well, no, I was too busy winning medals and running around and jumping up and
down. You're a champion. Not everyone's going to achieve that.
No, but what I'm trying to say is busy getting on with my life and my career.
Yeah. But I feel like with the mental state is different. I feel like when we were growing up, obviously you're a bit older than me, but I feel
way older than you, yeah.
But I think the mental state is that the pressure. I mean, we have now a different type of pressure for the mental state. I think when I was growing up, there was requirements, but the mental state wasn't as much as now. The younger generation deal with, like, you know, disorders of all kinds.
Yeah.
Now, you know,
you name it, you claim it.
I'll say one thing. I think that perhaps in recent times we've seen, for example, materialistic individualism really take root in society, and those sort of more social bonds have been lost. And they've been eroded. So I think that what Precious said, and I think what Chris said, is basically, if you actually focus on yourself, set goals for yourself, don't forget about what people are posting on Instagram. Because a lot of what they're posting isn't actually rooted in reality to begin with. Focus on
the highlights of their life.
I think more is set practical goals for yourself, give yourself that sense of direction, and that can actually increase your well-being in the longer term.
I think that's a brilliant shout. Brilliant shout from Rakib and from Precious. If you're young and you're watching, ditch that smartphone. It's not doing you any good. Coming up next, we've got the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction. A sneak peek at 10:20, 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. And in my take at 10, I'll be dealing with former Chancellor George Osborne, who wants to hand back British treasure to foreign climes. I'm not having it. I won't be pulling my punches. That's my take at 10 at 10. But next, are Harry and Meghan falling out of favour in the United States? We're heading straight to Hollywood, California, and the Queen of US showbiz royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere. Amazing! You see, amazing! You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel. Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful. Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
It's time now for US News with the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield. And Kinsey, in a world exclusive, here is your and my and our viewers' first look at the latest clip from the tell-all Prince Harry interview on ITV tomorrow night. Take a look.
Everyone knows where they were and what they were doing the night my mother died. I cried once at the burial. And, you know, I go into detail about how strange it was and how actually there was some guilt that I felt, and I think William felt as well, by walking around the outside of Kensington Palace. You know, 50,000 bouquets of flowers to our mother, and there we were shaking people's hands, smiling. I've seen the videos, right? I look back over it all. And the wet hands that we were shaking, we couldn't understand why their hands were wet, but it was all the tears that they were wiping away. Everyone thought and felt like they knew our mum. And the two closest people to her, the two most loved people by her, were unable to show any emotion in that moment.
Well, there you go. Quite a mic drop moment at the end of that. Kinsey, let's break that down in detail if we can. First of all, very moving comments from Prince Harry about the aftermath of his mum's death and the scenes at the funeral.
Oh, first of all, Mark, I would just like to tell you Happy New Year, and I missed you like the deserts miss the rain. Second of all, I would just say, absolutely, that's heartbreaking to hear, but I don't think in my years of studying the death of Diana, I've never heard anything about anyone telling Harry and William that they could not mourn, that they weren't allowed to cry, or that they weren't allowed to respond to their mother's death in any single way that they wanted to. I mean, perhaps they felt like they couldn't because the people around them weren't reacting in that way, but they were never instructed to behave a certain way. They were never instructed not to cry or to not be upset over their mother. And those smiling faces you're seeing, those are sweet little boys that it seems like are just trying to be courteous in a very uncomfortable situation.
Is history being rewritten once again?
I mean, I think so. It looks like the ultimate goal is to make the royal family these villainous characters, because Harry feels like they've done the same to him and Meghan, which he stated in this series of interviews. We hear him say they keep making us the villains. So perhaps Harry is just trying to shift direction of that role. But I never have I read that they were told that they had to behave a certain way after the death of their mother.
You've been studying Diana's legacy since you were a little girl. You have a globally renowned website dedicated to royal stories and the memory of Diana. It's called todiefordaily.com. Would you say that Harry's being dishonest in this clip?
You know, I think that Harry's believing what he's saying. I truly do. I think he believes what he says. But Mark, it feels like Harry is trying to continue with this blueprint that he thinks, or playbook that he thinks his mother left, the Martin Bashir interview, the Andrew Morton book. It does feel like he just is continuing these steps or recreating some of these moments. But you and I both know that at the time of Diana's death, she was not a popular figure. People were critical of her for chasing after Dodi. They wanted her to be home at Kensington Palace waiting to see her boys after holiday. They were cruel about her towards the end of her life because they were angry that she was, pursuing her own things. Some of Diana's decisions, some of these decisions she made were not popular. I feel like this myth that we've created of martyr Diana, which, I love her, but she was obviously damaged and made some mistakes, that happened at the time she took her last breath, Mark. I wish that Harry would study and learn from her mistakes versus repeating some of the same things that she did.
Indeed. So everyone thought and felt like they knew our mum, and the two closest people to her, the two most loved people by her, were unable to show any emotion in that moment. Damning comments, really.
It does. It feels like he's lashing out at his inability to grieve, and I'm happy that he's in a position now to where he's able to grieve however he wants to, and I encourage him to do so as long as he's not being cruel about his brother, which we've seen throughout these leaked pages of Spare, to comment on his hairline, to comment on the fact that he no longer looks like his mother, Prince William, to say Prince William no longer resembles his mother. I mean, that's just cruelty, and it's unnecessary because two men lost their mother, Mark, 2 men.
And what will William make of the fact that it's his brother who is now defining the Diana legacy?
I don't think he's going to be very happy about it, but we won't hear about that. He's going to continue to fume and grieve in private. This is a loss for him too. We know that he loved his little brother and protected him fiercely throughout his entire life. This has got to be feel like the ultimate betrayal, truly.
We're told that Harry wanted to retract the book after the Queen's Jubilee. Did he get cold feet about the publication of this book?
Yeah, this is a report from Valentine Lowe, who has been, a very credible source over the last few years. And Valentine Lowe says that Harry did get cold feet after the Jubilee. It was a combination of him seeing how loved and celebrated the Queen was, but also conversations that said, if you pursue this, you will be cut off. And that did scare him. So the publisher apparently walked in one day and said, he's pulled the book. Apparently after the death of the Queen, everything changed. But will he still have a place within the royal family? I don't know. I mean, they have got to be very forgiving individuals for that to come to fruition.
A devastating allegation on the front page of today's Daily Telegraph, Kinsey, suggesting that Harry hastened the passing of the Queen. That's a big accusation. What's your reaction?
I mean, I think that I hope he did not know that she was sick, Mark, because if so, that is so cruel. Did Harry and Meghan's actions hasten the death of the Queen? Only God knows that answer, and I don't know that answer, but I know that it didn't help her, and I know that it stressed her out through her final years and months. She was very disappointed by the situation.
Are the couple falling out of favour in the US? Because there seemed to be quite deafening silence from some of the previous Harry and Meghan supporters.
It's not just that, Mark. I know you're going to know some of these names. Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel has been poking fun at Harry every single night. This guy, Harry's releasing all of these pieces of gossip, and he's become a punchline, a skit between the two princes where two fake princes, like, Doves Cry princes, going at each other in a kitchen. They just did a mock voiceover of Harry talking about that frostbite incident. So he's become a punchline here in the States. A lot of people that have defended him in the past, like Don Lemon from CNN, is being critical of him recently. I do think that the public support is waning here in the States.
Harry is now the lemon. You will be glued to this documentary. You'll be watching it live.
I will, so that I can talk to you about it later. I don't know if it's necessarily something that I'm going to enjoy.
No, I've got no doubt you won't. But Kinsey, we can't wait to hear your top analysis. And we'll see you in a week's time. The Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Scofield. Missed you too, Kinsey, as have my many, many viewers. I got an email the other day from someone saying, why have you moved Kinsey? Because we organised our evening around when she's on. Coming up next, we've got the papers at exactly 10:20, 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. But it might take at 10. I'll be dealing with former Chancellor George Osborne, who wants to return British treasure. Find out more shortly.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, former Chancellor George Osborne, now chairman of the British Museum, wants to give away British treasure. In this forthcoming deal with Greece to return precious artworks saved from the ravages of war, we've lost our marbles. We've got the papers at the earlier time of 10:20 right through until 11 o'clock. And we'll be joined by Britain's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Nelson. In the news agenda with my panel, should companies be more generous to their staff? Plus, as people pay to freeze their bodies, Is there life after death? Lots to get through, including my Take at 10. I'm not pulling my punches, folks, but first, the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has described today's talks between NHS leaders and the Prime Minister as highly valuable. Rishi Sunak met health experts to discuss critical challenges in the NHS, which senior doctors believe is on a knife edge. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, says at least 2 innovative solutions have been identified to tackle some of the challenges facing the sector. And Chief Executive of the Day Lewis Pharmacy Group, Jay Patel, says the talks were constructive.
You know, the session was a small group of us, lots of insight in terms of what the problems really are out there, balance between community pharmacy and general practice, and some great description of what the core issues are out there on the ground. The PM was very receptive to what we discussed and we explained the issues, and we swiftly moved on to looking at options that we could put into place to be able to rapidly see if we can alleviate some of those challenges.
Police searching for a missing couple and their baby have released a CCTV image believed to be that of the mother some 200 miles from where they were last seen. Ms Martin, Mark Gordon and their child have been missing since their vehicle broke down on the M61 near Bolton on Thursday. Greater Manchester Police are appealing for the mother, Constance Martin, to make contact and seek medical assistance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia's call for a ceasefire had been deceptive, adding shells had hit the eastern city of Bakhmut in Ukraine, where this resident has been describing the damage.
Our town used to be so beautiful. There were roses everywhere, flowers. It was clean. Everything was kept in order.
Well, Russian shellings continued in Ukraine in violation of a self-declared 36-hour ceasefire for Orthodox Christmas, which has now ended. Kyiv immediately dismissed the proposal as propaganda. The Kremlin, though, claims its troops have only fired in retaliation to attacks from Ukrainian forces. The Foreign Secretary's condemned Iran's execution of 2 protesters as abhorrent, and he has urged the regime to immediately end the violence against its own people. Iran hanged the 2 men for allegedly killing a member of the security forces during nationwide demonstrations following the death of the 22-year-old Kurdish-Iranian woman Mahsa Amini last September. Human rights groups have described their trial as a sham. Prince Harry has revealed he only cried once over the death of his mother, the Princess of Wales, at her burial. The Duke of Sussex added neither he nor his brother William were able to show any emotion as they met mourners, and he felt guilt when walking outside Kensington Palace following his mother's death in 1997. In a clip from Harry, the interview on ITV promoting his memoir, Harry says, "Everyone knows where they were and what they were doing the night my mother died." TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now it is back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thanks, Aaron. We'll see you at 11. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my Take at 10, former Chancellor George Osborne, now chairman of the British Museum, wants to give away British treasure. Find out more shortly. We've got the papers at 10:20. That's 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. And we'll get reaction from Britain's longest-serving political editor, Nigel Nelson. In the news agenda with my panel, should companies be more generous to their staff? Plus, as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? Would you freeze your body on the off chance? Reacting to those stories and many more are my brilliant panel tonight of TV personality Precious Muir, Olympian and broadcaster Chris Akabusi, and writer and research analyst Rakib Ehsan. Lots more to come this hour, but first, my Take at 10. The former Chancellor, George Osborne, remember him, the man behind Project Fear, a man who told us the British economy would implode if we left the European Union. Well, he's back. Living high on the hog with a 7-figure corporate salary, this St Paul's educated icon of the elite is also the chairman of the British Museum, arguably the greatest museum on Earth, and home to vast swathes of rescued and recovered global treasure, without which would be lost forever. How ironic, therefore, that Osborne, the architect of austerity, should be embarked on a mass giveaway, a car boot sale of the museum's finest artefacts. This week, we're told a deal is in the offing to return the treasured Elgin marbles to Greece. Now, be clear, items like the Elgin marbles have only survived war, revolution, environmental disaster, crime and pestilence as a result of bold British archaeologists and explorers travelling the world, finding these items, repairing them and giving them a permanent home. Now, we're told these marbles are just being loaned to Greece, therefore avoiding criticism that we've backed down in a decades-long row about whether these statues should be kept. It's a fudge, if you like, or, being charitable, a compromise. But in my view, it is a defeat. We blinked first. Writing in the City AM newspaper on this very subject, top historian Tiffany Jenkins said, and I quote, "Throughout history, art objects have passed across borders. No one is suggesting that every Italian master belongs to the Italian government. Why then should we think that the Elgin marbles belong to the Greek government? By looking at the similarities and differences between the artefacts from various cultures, the British Museum, where 6 million visitors gaze at the astonishing craftsmanship each year for free, is the ideal home." How right she is. Now, the great legacy of this country, as with the Italians and the French and others, is our tradition of preserving history. How many other items that we have placed on display for the world to enjoy must we now return? For me, it all ties in with the woke narrative of feeling guilty about our own history. Because our history is one of exploration, of discovery, of preservation. And we only keep it by keeping physical evidence of just that. The very concept of this globally renowned museum is about as British as a game of cricket, a pint of ale, or a slab of Wensleydale cheese. By being on display in the British Museum, that's not us stealing or being possessive about other countries' history. The British Museum belongs to the world, and it is a gift to the world. Look at the torching of rare historic sites in Mosul by ISIS. These are acts of cultural barbarism that have been prevented by the existence of the British Museum in the past. If this fire sale continues, you might as well get rid of the place altogether. Just get rid of the British Museum and turn it into a big old Tesco's. Maybe one of those Tesco's Extra that sell flat-screen tellies and kids' trousers. What motivates George Osborne to concede in this long-running battle, I can only guess. I do hope it's not self-aggrandisement. That would be so out of character. If we loan these statues back to Greece, we'll never get them back again. Without any kind of debate or consent of the people, we have needlessly yielded by returning what is, by definition, at least in part, British treasure too. It pains me to say that with this move, we've lost our marbles, quite literally. The only crumbling artefact we should be sending abroad, never to return, is this discredited ex-chancellor. Osborne in a glass box? I'd queue up to see that. Reacting to that and all the big stories of the day, my all-star panel, I'm delighted to say we've got Olympian broadcaster and motivational speaker Chris Akabusi, TV personality Precious Muir, and writer and research analyst Rakib Ahsan. Let me start with you, Rakib. Should we be handing back the Elgin marbles?
Well, I think there's fairly convincing arguments for both sides. I think one thing that I'd say is that maybe this is an opportunity for the UK to shore up its relationship with an EU member state, an important EU member state, in the post-Brexit environment. Now, of course, you have said that there are so many British individuals who are involved in looking after the marbles, preserving it, and the fact that it had experienced various forms of trauma, you could say. Britain has done a fine job of that, but we have to ultimately see this is where it originated from. We have to see the circumstances under which they ended up in Britain, and perhaps we can see this as an opportunity to improve our diplomatic relations with a strategically important partner in the Mediterranean.
Well, that sounds to me, Rakib, like you're throwing the towel in. Are we so...
Oh, mate, no such thing.
Are we so in hock to the EU that we've got to throw them a bone like this? Well, I mean, Rakib, what's going to happen? Should the Louvre send back all of the Van Goghs to Amsterdam?
Well, that's a matter for the Louvre. Let's keep the focus on this particular case. I'm just making the point, Mark, that we have to talk about how these marbles actually ended up in Britain. I think that's something that needs to be discussed, and I think that we have to see more generally the wider diplomatic implications of this and what benefits there are to actually the marbles being returned to Greece.
I'll come to the other panellists in a moment, but Rakib, we agree on so much, but I don't think that we should play a game of trying to be nice to the EU. We'll never win their friendship because we had the temerity to leave the bloc.
Well, we slightly disagree there because I like you, I was in favour of leaving the European Union. But I think the reality of the matter is that's not to say that we should completely cut our ties from the European Union and crucial EU member states. We took that approach with France, to be honest, and I think that's backfired spectacularly, especially when it comes to our management of the illegal channel crossings. So I think that what we have to talk about is we are a post-Brexit independent nation, but we're also one where we should continue to prioritise strategic alliances, and that includes important ties with EU members.
Chris Akabusi, 6 million visitors a year go to the British Museum to look at the Elgin marbles. We can't say for sure that they would exist if it wasn't for that museum. Why are we giving them back?
So, I think we can pat ourselves on the back. 200 years ago, Ottoman Empire, Lord Elgin purchased the Parthenon marbles, not Elgin marbles. And like you've just said, we've explored, we've excavated, we've preserved, we've been phenomenal stewards, and we can pat ourselves on the back. That is brilliant. But 200 years later, it seems to me that it's the height of arrogance to assume that the Greeks would not be in the right frame of mind to look after part of their own heritage. So I do like the idea. I know it's against our laws for us to hand back and sell these artefacts. So the idea that we loan them indefinitely is a great idea. And as Rakiba said, it's about developing relations with our European neighbours. That's also good. We can have replicas if we want to hold them in the British Museum and say, this is a replica of what we did for 200 years. We looked after these precious jewels. We looked after them, we restored them, and we've now relocated them to their origin to sit on the Parthenon, and where you can go back to the origin of Greece. Now I know the Greece of today has got very little relevance to the Greece of 4,000 years ago. However, it's from the soil, the son of the soil. You can stand there and think the people who walked on the highways and byways and saw this magnificent feature in its original state.
I thought you were about to start singing there for a minute.
Oh my God, so passionate.
I want to live in America. The clock's against us, but Precious Muir, where does this end, Precious?
This is the thing,
because let me just give you a scenario. We're going to send back bloody coins to the Romans, right, to the Italians now. We're going to send the jade back to the Japanese, and we're going to send the mummies back to Egypt. I want to keep mummy.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. It's like the door will open and the floodgates will, it would just be never-ending. We'll be returning a lot of things. Remember, the British, I am very proud to be from England, but let's just think of the history. It colonised a lot of countries. So for us to open these gates, we're going to be returning a lot of artwork, OK? So is this something we want to start? I honestly think this would never have happened if the Queen was still alive. I think that since the Queen has passed, a lot of things are changing. And I don't know if it's for the better.
OK, I've got an idea. Here's what we should send to Greece, OK? What we'll do is we'll have these boxes all packaged up and we'll write Elgin marbles with a Sharpie pen, right? Black marker pen, and the boxes, and it's the Elgin marble. And inside we'll have Harry and Meghan, right? We'll have Philip.
Here he goes, here he goes.
Philip Scofield and Gary Lineker.
How long has it been since Meghan was brought up? There we go. Okay.
Let's see how they get on with that lot in Athens. Talk about ancient relics. That's exactly right. The Elgin Markles.
Parthenon.
Nicely done. Credit to that gag, producer Greg. OK, look, lots more to come. I'm really excited because the paper's next, 10 minutes earlier than everyone else, because my focus on this show, and Greg and Sebastian and my brilliant team, is for this show to be better than any other show. That's all we care about, and that's why we get into the papers earlier than everyone else. They are next, and we've got some headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Well, the emails are coming in thick and fast. At 9 o'clock, we had my big opinion monologue. Happens 9 o'clock every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And tonight was about COVID restrictions. And I say that we reject that, we push back. Well, this from Emily, who says, "Hi, Mark, this country is already in a deep economic crisis. If new COVID restrictions were to be imposed, it would make people less productive and cost our economy billions more to recover." So she is not having it. And then a quick one on the Elgin marbles. This from Vince. "If we return all the historic relics and the uproar about our own history, there will be nothing left." Vince, very well put and very moving. OK, let's crack on now and let's have a sneak peek at tomorrow's papers. Of course, it's the Sunday papers, so we dedicate 40 minutes to that every Saturday night. And I'm delighted to welcome one of the most experienced journalists in the country, and we'll come to him shortly. That's Nigel Nelson. But first off, let's have a look at The Sun on Sunday. And more revelations in relation to Prince William and that book. Wills lunged at me after Philip funeral. He grabbed my shirt. Listen to me, Harold, he said. So this is the second allegation of physical violence on the part of Prince William towards Harry. Second physical bust-up. Might there be more revealed in the book? The Observer next. NHS hospitals push private route to quick and easy care. Trusts offer chance to jump long queues. Rapid access risks two-tier service. NHS trusts with record waiting lists are promoting quick and easy private healthcare services at their own hospitals, offering patients the chance for speedier treatment. For example, hospitals are offering hip replacements from £10,000, cataract surgery for $2,200 and hernia repairs for $2,500. And you can get an MRI for $300, cheap at half the price. Also, teachers' strike could close most schools. A concern that if teachers down tools in February and March, that actually it could see widespread school closures across the country. Those are two of the papers. The Sunday Mirror's on its way. Let's speak to their political editor, Nigel Nelson. Good evening, Nigel. You, sir, have just put the paper to bed. The headline, we're getting the graphic ready, Nigel, but your headline, Royal Security Warning, Harry has made Invictus Games a target. This lad, he's not covered himself in glory this week, has he, Nigel?
No, he hasn't indeed. And what we've got various people telling us is that because of his admission that he killed 25 Taliban, that puts both him and some of the things that he sponsors, like the Invictus Games, in danger. And so we've got the former Admiral of the Fleet, Lord West, who says that the Invictus Games will be at higher risk because of what Harry has done. A former head of the Royal Protection, Di Davis, says much the same thing. And it seems to be an extraordinary thing for Harry to have done. He should know, having been a soldier, that what you don't do is discuss your kills.
Most certainly. Harry is running out of friends and running out of friends fast, Nigel.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are some actually quite sympathetic front pages for him this morning, tomorrow morning rather. I mean, the Sunday People focuses on the ITV interview where he's talking about the fact that he was only able to cry once, and that was at the funeral of his mother. There was the downside of being a royal. Both him and William had to put on a very sort of stiff upper lip, public face when they were going outside looking at the flowers after Princess Diana's death, that kind of thing. And it was an awful lot to put on two young lads. I mean, Harry was only 12, William 15. So I think that there's a mixed bag for Harry, that certainly the admission about the Taliban was a great mistake. I mean, I think he could have answered it by saying, look, he was a soldier, he did what he had to do, and he doesn't want to dwell on it anymore. That would have been a much better response than what he actually came out with.
Nigel Nelson, you've reported on many prime ministers over many decades. What is Rishi Sunak's most pressing concern? Because we've got a front page headline in The Observer, NHS hospitals push private route to quick and easy care. So what is the top of his in tray? Is it the economy? Is it the small boats? Is it the strikes? Or is it the NHS?
I'm not sure that Rishi Sunak knows, actually. Today it's been the NHS. He's held an NHS summit at number 10 with ministers, health chiefs and other experts. And what the Observer is talking about is this rather extraordinary claim that NHS trusts are offering fast-track treatment to patients, provided they pay to go privately in the hospital. They would have had the treatment in for free if they're prepared to wait on a waiting list. What is odd about this is that the going rate that the Observer quotes, you've got hips for £10,000, cataracts at 2,200, a hernia repair for 2,500. That's actually what it costs the NHS to do these procedures for free. So the question is going to be, if there is this spare capacity in the private division of these NHS trusts, why aren't they using that to reduce waiting lists rather than trying to make money out of it?
To you, right. Nigel, I've been through the small print. This might catch your eye. They're doing bum lifts for 100. I'm going in on Monday. Do you want to join me?
I think I'll keep mine the way it is.
I've heard it's perfect. Greg's got one more paper for me. Greg, what have we got? Let's have a look at the Sunday Mirror, your paper. And it is that headline, Nigel. Harry has made Invictus Games a target. This story is going to run and run, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to run and run until everyone gets very bored with it. I mean, it seems now there's almost no point buying the book coming out next week on the basis that we seem to have seen most of the interesting bits in it. And you kind of wonder what Harry will do next. He's obviously out to make a lot of money, but there must come a point when even his well runs dry.
Listen, I'll see you on Harley Street on Monday morning. Don't forget your scrubs. And thank you for your wise thoughts tonight. Don't forget to buy a copy of Nigel's paper tomorrow. He's got two papers, the Sunday People and the Sunday Mirror, both a cracking read and full of exclusives. Thanks, Nigel. Speak soon. Lots more to come. More papers after past. So don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's exactly 10:30, and as always at this time every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, a deep dive into tomorrow's papers. And let us start with the Sunday Times. They lead with the following. NHS to buy up care beds to clear wards. Thousands of NHS patients stuck in hospitals will be moved urgently into care homes under government plans to ease pressure on A&E wards. Steve Barclay, the Health Secretary, will unveil an emergency winter pressure package this week that will include a hospital discharge fund. This will be used to block buy thousands of care home beds in Care Quality Commission approved facilities. Whilst the final package was being negotiated in Downing Street tonight, senior government sources said it would involve spending hundreds of millions of pounds on top of 500 million in social care funding announced in the autumn statement. Ministers hope that that fund, which went to the NHS and local councils to increase the number of social care beds, will begin to have an effect within the next 4 weeks and could free up between 1,000 and 2,000 hospital beds. Currently, 13,000 patients are stuck on wards who do not need to be in hospital. 13,000 people in hospital who shouldn't be. William burning inside over Harry's revelations. Roya Nicker, the Sunday Times' excellent royal editor, says the Prince of Wales is burning over revelations in the Duke of Sussex's book, but refuses to retaliate for the sake of his country and family. This, according to friends. OK, Sunday Telegraph now. Harry's guilt. I couldn't cry in public when my mother died. And Barclay dangles cash carrot for striking staff. Another NHS story. A possible hope of some kind of resolution to the nursing industrial action. Striking health workers could get a significant pay boost from April if staff accept radical reforms to improve productivity. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, the Health Secretary has pledged a constructive approach to pay negotiations with increases on the table if unions agree to boost efficiency, to make higher salaries more affordable and to overall link pay to performance. This could also include better use of technology or revisions to outdated working practices. Also, £1 pay rise can lose you 14k. Workers could be forced to turn down pay rises or risk losing thousands of pounds owing to ridiculous complexities in the tax and benefits system. In the worst-case scenario, a £1 salary increase would cost a worker 14 grand as they're stripped of valuable tax breaks and childcare allowances. The Observer, NHS hospitals push private route to quick and easy care, offering cataract surgery for 2 grand, hip replacements for 10k and an MRI for 300. Also, teachers' strike could close most schools. Proposed industrial action in February and March could see most English schools shuttered. The Independent Speaker elected at 15th time of asking, Kevin McCarthy, has become the US House Speaker after the longest contest in more than a century. Pay deal needed to cut waiting lists, warn nurses. Rishi Sunak has called for bold and radical action to fix the NHS crisis as the leader of Britain's nursing union warned that he cannot meet his waiting list pledge without addressing pay. Sunday Express, Harry puts children in danger. Prince Harry has placed his children in the crosshairs of extremists and will be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life, say top security experts, including SAS hero and best-selling author Andy McNabb. By the way, Andy McNabb, do you know he lives at 27 Acacia Avenue? Interesting that, isn't it? Oh, no, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Sorry, Andy. Oh, I feel so bad. The Sun on Sunday now. You got there in the end. The others are still waiting. The Sun on Sunday exclusive. Harry book reveals new bust-up in front of Charles. Wills lunged at me after Philip's funeral. He grabbed my shirt, listen to me, Harold, is what he said. So the second allegation of violence on the part of Prince William towards Harry. Sunday Mirror, have we got that one? Yeah, we do, lovely. Royal security warning, Harry has made Invictus Games a target. And last but not least, the Daily Star Sunday. Mouse mayhem, invasion of the sex-mad squeakers. Nobody expects the Spanish mouse invasion, but the randy rodents are here, spreading their oats to create super mice immune to common poisons. Bloomin' hell. That's right, Spanish mega mice taking over Britain. There you go. I smell a rat. Let's get reaction now from my wonderful panel to all of tomorrow's front pages. We have Olympian and broadcaster Chris Akabusi, television personality Precious Muir, and top writer and research analyst Rakib Ihsan. Let's have a look at these stories. Chris, if I could start with you, and what do you think about this idea of using the private sector to help with the NHS waiting lists? NHS hospitals push private route to quick and easy care, 10 grand for a new hip.
Maybe this is a sign of things to come. Of course, I understand that when the NHS was founded in the 40s, free at the point of use. But maybe there is an argument that, now look, I've paid my taxes for the last 40 years, right? But there might be an argument that if you can afford to pay for, obviously it means testing in some way, shape or form, that you get a subsidised thing for quick access. Now, I know then you're going to get people shouting, so because you've got a bit of money, you can afford to circumnavigate and get in quickly, blah, blah, blah. But we've got to do something. So to start answering your question, maybe this is just a little test in the water to see whether the general populace will be open to some form of two-tier, free at the point of use, means testing, private medical issue. You don't like it?
Well, that's it. Well, this is the question. Does it open that can of worms? Something I wanted to ask you, Rakib, is that many people, I think most of us around the panel, most of the public, still want a service which is effectively free at the point of need. You don't want to break your leg and then be looking for your credit card. And we should never have people worrying about their bills if they fall ill.
No.
But there is a welcome debate to be had about how the NHS is structured and paid for. Is the issue with the NHS that the basic structure is a socialist one?
Well, I think that one of the main problems we have, we're in the middle of a demographic crisis. We have an increasingly ageing society. And in a sense, in a way, that shows how much we've advanced in a scientific sense, that people are living for longer. But that'll inevitably put pressure on your social systems. And I think that if we're looking at a model where the NHS increasingly relies on sort of private sector providers to provide certain services in order to reduce the overall load on the NHS, then I think we have to explore those kind of public-private partnerships.
Is that not privatisation by stealth?
Not necessarily, because I think ultimately what you're doing, you're creating a diversity of providers in order to reduce load on what is currently a publicly funded healthcare service which is struggling.
What we can't do is say, no. We have got to rethink, we have got to challenge, we have got to discuss.
Yeah, there has to be some middle ground, isn't there? We can't go to the extent like when I lived in New York and you have to pay a co-pay. You have to worry about... Basically, when you go to see your doctor and you have health insurance, but you still have to pay a co-pay, which is a payment that you pay towards what your insurance will cover.
I see. So a little bit like an excess on insurance policy.
Exactly. So can you imagine if that was in place now? Would it work for us? I'm not sure, but there needs to be a middle ground.
If there was a co-pay, as you call it, or an insurance excess, would people look after themselves a bit better so they didn't wind up in hospital?
I think that's the problem. I think also then some people will not have the ability or the finances to actually go and see a doctor, because there's a lot of Americans out there that need to see doctors and they can't afford to. So this.
But what about that flip side, Chris? The idea that because, and I got, an email about it earlier in the show, because everything's free in the NHS, the public take it for granted. In many ways, they have self-inflicted lifestyle-related illnesses. Maybe they drink too much, smoke, high BMI, type 2 diabetes. All of these are lifestyle-related conditions. Why should the NHS be picking up the tab?
Yeah, there was once floated an idea that you would pay your doctor to stay healthy. So that there will be some sort of causal relationship with if your doctor to keep you healthy and if you follow the regime. And I think actually there are a lot of apps actually that are doing this now, aren't they? That are monitoring you. If you sign up with your insurance company and you walk a certain amount of steps and you show that you're doing certain things.
And why is that a bad thing? I mean, the late great George Best was told he wouldn't get a new liver unless he kicked the bottle. His doctor said to him, "You are not getting a new liver until you've cleaned yourself up a bit."
Yeah, only problem is when you start going down the routes of addictions,
Yeah.
that's not so simple. You know, there's a lot of
that's a little bit
psycho-emotional things that are going on there, aren't there?
It's like
I don't know, though, but I don't know if
it's
you...
like taking control of someone's life.
Well, wait a minute,
I mean.
Rakib, if you needed a new liver and you know that the way to get that is to address your drinking problem, I don't see a problem with that.
Well, I mean, if I was in that situation, I'd be grateful for that new liver and I'd take the best care of it if I abused my original.
Yeah, but that's
the discussion we need to have. We need to talk more about personal responsibility and individual issues.
Yeah, but that's suggesting that the addiction is a rational thing where I can think it through, and not a psychodynamic, emotional thing in which that has possessed me. In old language, I am possessed by the drinking spirit.
Yeah.
So you know, there is this. It's not as simple. It's much more nuanced than, I'm going to stop drinking now.
I'll just make this point, Mark. I think quite often when we have these debates, we talk about our publicly funded healthcare system, and in the United States, where you have very much a private-oriented system, there is a middle ground. There's a number of European countries that...
Yes, Germany.
You know, Germany would be an example, where you do have certain models of private insurance there. So I think one thing that we can do in Britain, we can learn from other models, especially in Europe, in terms of how we can lift
we need a middle ground
standards.
Because we cannot then have something like Obamacare where nobody can actually qualify for it because you earn too much. And then you can't just have everybody paying all these co-pays and insurances because nobody can afford to go and see
Good
their
thing is,
doctor.
Mark, at least we're having the conversation. Because I think all too often there's almost this sanctification of the NHS, and I think that's unhelpful.
A second allegation, Rakib Ihsan, in The Sun on Sunday. Wills lunged at me after Philip funeral. Now, this is on top of an earlier allegation that we heard just a couple of days ago that William allegedly physically attacked Harry in a Nottinghamshire cottage, grabbed his collar, broke his chain and chucked him to the floor. Now he's been attacked after Prince Philip's funeral, which is not long ago. Where does this end?
I have no idea. I think it's thoroughly unedifying as well, isn't it? It's the airing of dirty family laundry. I think that Prince Harry, if truth be told, I think he's had a very difficult week. I think from a PR perspective, it's been a poor week, if truth be told, especially with the revelation surrounding his experiences serving in Afghanistan, revealing the personal number of kills, referring to
But I
enemy
think
combatants.
it's like, I think Harry is fed up of being a pawn. And it's time for him to take control of the narrative. He's had enough. He's had enough of what the institution has been dictating his whole entire life. Remember, he was not married in. He was born into this lifestyle. He's been dealing with this his whole entire life. And now he's finally seen the light. He's realised he had bigoted, unconscious bias tendencies, and he's released from this pressure under the firm. He is saying, I am hurt, I am sad, I am upset, and I want my family to be by my side. He doesn't want King Charles and he doesn't want Prince William. He wants his brother and his father on his side. That's it.
But they have their own specific duties.
They are feeding information to the media. They don't have to directly speak out on social media, OK? People don't seem to understand they have representatives speaking on their behalf. At the end of the day, Harry has suffered and he is explaining his truth. He's not a criminal.
But he can do that. He can do that without undermining the security of existing.
This I agree with. There is certain
personnel.
aspects of what Harry has told the public and has written and is going to be in the interviews tomorrow is the fact that he shouldn't have said the details of Afghanistan, because then it is putting Meghan in a situation where she could be harmed in some way and Harry could be harmed. And even, definitely he's not going to be going to the coronation anytime soon.
But also, what about dobbing his brother in about a little bit of fisticuffs? Siblings often fall out, don't they? He shouldn't have gone public with that, should he?
I think it's part of his story. And if you look at, anyone's book, anybody that sold a story on Harry before has said all the details. So he's not going to leave out critical information in something that's going to continue, obviously, making this book a success and adding the spice to the story.
He himself
Remember, he's selling a book, guys.
He's commodified his family life. And
commodified his family. What a damning verdict from Rakib Ihsan. We're going to return to this after the break. Plus, should companies be more generous to their staff? And as people pay to freeze their bodies, is there life after death? Would you freeze your body on the off chance? See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Big reaction to our debate on the NHS. This from Adrian. NHS is free. The paying for treatment is privatisation disgraceful. People will jump the queues who can pay for treatment. People will die who can't afford to pay, and that is working people as well. So Adrian is not having this, what he would see as part privatisation. This from Susan, echoing those comments. Hi, Mark. The NHS is not free. It's our NHS. We pay for it through our taxes and national insurance. The reason people are bed blocking is the fault of the Tories as they closed all the convalescent homes back in the 80s. Susan, thank you for that. And then let's just get to one more, which I've got a couple of pinned tweets. This from Annie, who says, hi, Mark, my NHS cataract operation was done in a private clinic last week. Op cost, if I paid, $2,500. I do not think people realise how expensive their operations are. We must charge foreign visitors if they use our NHS, as we are charged if we fall ill abroad. Annie, thank you for that, and I wish you a speedy recovery. Let's get to some more big stories from the papers. Tesco staff say they've missed out on a Christmas bonus for a second year running, with some receiving only a box of Quality Street for their efforts. In 2020, the supermarket giant paid a 10% Christmas bonus, so they got 10% in 2020, and they've given out shopping vouchers in previous years. But this time round, the only thing given to staff was a plastic tub of chocolates worth about £5. So, should companies be more generous to their staff? Precious?
I think they should. I mean, obviously, the living crisis that we're going through has prevented them from giving bonuses, but these people are actually looking forward and really relying on these bonuses. And to go from getting, you know, obviously the things that they were getting, which is a huge different significance for the end of the year, they're getting a box of chocolates is not going to cut it.
Yeah, it isn't. And actually, the supermarkets made a lot of money during the pandemic.
Yeah, so why did they change is the question that we need to ask.
Yeah.
That's
what do people want? Do they want treats? Do they want gifts from their employer?
No, they want
do they
money.
want special, you know, do they want away days in hotels, or do they want more cash?
My understanding is that the Tesco's, in this case, have given their employees an 80% pay rise on the basic income. And now the CPI, Consumer Price Index, is run at 10.7%.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the unions that are people that are agitating now for more pay, they'd be very happy with 8% basic on the basic. And what they did get over Christmas was a 20% discount on products over certain days. So you could buy products in the store for 20% less than the general public. So I think if that's true, they probably haven't done too bad compared to...
Yeah, but don't staff... I mean, obviously in retail, you get a discount anyway.
Yes,
you can't give them what they already receive.
Well,
As a person who works in retail, they would receive a discount to shop in the store.
So maybe this is I don't know.
I'm telling you right now, when I was 16 years old and working down in Oxford Street, you got your discount.
Yeah, but this might be an additional 20% on certain days. So they might get that discount.
40%, you're saying?
No, so you're talking they've got a discount card, so they get a discount card. And then on certain days, there's additional 20% discount on certain products.
I think what you have to say, though, it depends on the business's capabilities, isn't it? Tesco's a supermarket giant.
Exactly.
It's not quite the same. If it's a small family-run business in a local community, their ability to give lavish bonuses might not be in line with its financial capabilities. Most important thing they're doing is just providing a job and keeping afloat. Especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis, that can put significant pressure on those sort of smaller-sized businesses. Yeah, we're talking about a supermarket giant. Perhaps they could do a little bit.
So, but I mean, they could do definitely a lot more. I mean, obviously they've risen the hourly wage now is what, £10.30 or something. It's been increased slightly, but it's not significant enough because those people are the ones that got through COVID, those are the kind of people that we need to take care of, and we're failing them.
I think
because we're doing it with the nurses. I understand that we don't have the funds. We're doing it with the nurses. We're doing it with the teachers. I'm not for the rail strikes because I don't believe that they need any more money. But at the end of the day, the people...
How are you making that decision?
I don't think they have plenty of money. I think they're getting enough.
Who's they?
Wages.
Who?
The rail workers are getting plenty of money. They are getting plenty of money, and there's a lot of them hanging around the station doing nothing, having a chat with their friends.
But within the rail workers, that includes people that might even be cleaning the toilets.
Yes, exactly.
I don't say all significant staff, but I'm saying the majority of the ones that are striking and causing all of these strikes is the issue that we're dealing with.
I'll make one point, Mark. I think that one thing that British workers, perhaps many British workers might feel there could be improvements is how they're treated, for example, if they're in sickness, how they're treated by their employer in that case, and whether or not they have, to what extent are they treated well when it comes to sort of family-related commitments, maybe family bereavements. I think those kind of because I think that counts for a lot for many British workers, how they're treated in those kind of situations.
I mean, if we didn't have those people getting us the food and the products that we needed through COVID and through the pandemic, we wouldn't have got through as we did. I mean, we need to show appreciation to the ones that are on the front line, and those are the people that were serving us and getting our groceries, and we couldn't leave. Remember, we were stuck in our house.
You know what? I love what you're saying there because we clapped for carers.
Yeah, we never clapped for the Sainsbury worker or the Tesco.
The security drivers, the taxi.
Bus drivers.
Exactly.
And of course, the supermarkets were full of people with COVID, and the workers went in there, masks for 12 hours, an absolute shocker.
Exactly.
If you're bored by the Harry story, then why don't you tune into Mark Dolan tonight, tomorrow from 9 till 11. And at 10:30, when the documentary ends, we've got Michael Cole, former Royal correspondent, reacting to what was in that documentary. So watch Mark Dolan tonight, get the highlights at 10:30. Thanks to my brilliant panel, who absolutely smashed it tonight, and of course my amazing team behind the glass, and you at home for watching. And we'll do it all again tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and there will be a mixture of bright or sunny spells, scattered heavy showers and strong winds across the UK. Let's take a look at the details. A windy morning for northern Scotland with gales in the west, scattered showers to the north and west, with drier conditions and sunnier skies to the east, highs of 7 Celsius. For Northern Ireland, a dry but windy morning with sunny spells, but showers arriving from the west later in the day. Afternoon highs of around 6 Celsius. Northern England will likely turn increasingly showery through Sunday morning with a fresh southwesterly breeze and temperatures climbing towards afternoon highs of 7 Celsius. It will be an inclement day for North Wales, with the showers merging into longer spells of rain and turning to sleet or snow over the mountains. Daytime temperatures peaking at around 6 Celsius. For the East Midlands, a breezy and largely dry morning with sunny spells, turning cloudier later with the risk of showers. Temperatures rising towards highs of 7 to 9 Celsius for the afternoon. For East Anglia, a risk of showers for Essex and Suffolk during the morning, otherwise dry for most. Showers becoming more widespread for the afternoon. Breezy with highs of 9 Celsius. A showery and breezy morning for southern England, and rather cloudy too. Some blustery winds in and around the heaviest showers, with daytime temperatures climbing to highs of around 8 Celsius. Staying cyclonic with strong winds and gales in northern Scotland, gradually easing and bands of showers passing eastward across the country. And that is how the weather is shaping up through tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious, much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom.
The Prime Minister is calling on health leaders to take bold and radical action to avert the NHS crisis. It follows emergency talks between Rishi Sunak and health experts, which have been described by Downing Street as highly valuable. Senior doctors say the NHS is on a knife edge, with A&E units, health trusts and ambulance services declaring critical incidents. Meanwhile, the head of the RCN Nurses Union has warned the upcoming strikes will be the largest of their kind in the world if the government does not negotiate on pay. Police searching for a missing couple and their baby have released a CCTV image believed to be of the mother, some 200 miles from where they were last seen. The image is thought to show Constance Martin at Harwich Port in Essex. Ms Martin, Mark Dolan and their child have been missing since their vehicle broke down on the M61 near Bolton on Thursday. Police are appealing for them to make contact and seek medical assistance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia's call for a ceasefire had been deceptive, adding that shelling of the eastern city of Bakhmut continued, where this resident has been describing the damage.
Our town used to be so beautiful. There were roses everywhere, flowers. It was clean. Everything was kept in order.
Well, Russian attacks have continued across Ukraine in violation of the 36-hour self-declared ceasefire for Orthodox Christmas, which has now ended. The Kremlin claims its troops, though, only fired in retaliation to attacks from Ukrainian forces. The Foreign Secretary has condemned Iran's execution of 2 protesters as abhorrent and has urged the regime to immediately end the violence against its own people. Iran hanged the 2 men for allegedly killing a member of the security forces during nationwide demonstrations following the death of the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini last September. Human rights groups have described their trial as a sham. Prince Harry's revealed he only cried once over the death of his mother, the Princess of Wales, at her burial. The Duke of Sussex added neither he nor his brother, Prince William, were able to show any emotion as they met mourners, and that he felt guilt while walking outside Kensington Palace following his mother's death in 1997. In the interview on ITV promoting his memoir, Harry says everyone knows where they were and what they were doing the night my mother died. TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now, it's back to headliners.
Good evening. A brunette, a blonde and a redhead walk into the GB News studios. It's Headliners. I'm your host, Diane